On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Margaret Thatcher, the United Kingdom's first female prime minister and one of the most influential political leaders of the 20th century, died on April 8, 2013, at the age of 87. Her death was due to a stroke, marking the end of a long decline in health that followed years of public service and political controversy. Thatcher's passing was a natural one, yet its symbolic weight was immense. She had, after all, reshaped Britain and left an indelible mark on global politics. Known as the Iron Lady, Thatcher led Britain from 1979 to 1990, championing conservative economic policies, privatization of state industries, and a strong anti-communist stance. Her death prompted immediate polarized reactions. Admirers mourned the loss of a resolute leader who had revived a faltering Britain, while critics remembered the deep divisions her policies caused, particularly among working-class communities and in regions affected by deindustrialization. The circumstances of her passing, quiet and out of the political spotlight, contrasted sharply with the fierce and combative spirit of her public life. Thatcher died at the Ritz Hotel in London, far from the political battlefield she had once dominated. Her funeral, though not a state one, carried ceremonial honors and drew dignitaries from around the world, signaling her global stature. Her death reignited debate over her legacy. For some, it was a moment to reassert the values of free enterprise and self-reliance that she championed. For others, it was a chance to confront the long-term consequences of her reforms, including social inequality and weakened unions. The intensity of this debate showed how deeply she had influenced the national identity and the political landscape. In the years since, Thatcher has been immortalized in statues, films, notably The Iron Lady starring Meryl Streep, biographies, and countless scholarly articles. Her legacy continues to stir discussion, reflecting humanity's complicated relationship with power and the figures who wield it. As with Cleopatra or Lincoln, her death did not diminish her influence. It reinforced her place in history as a figure who both shaped and mirrored the struggles of her era. Pablo Picasso, the revolutionary Spanish artist whose prolific work reshaped modern art, died of natural causes on April 8, 1973, at the age of 91. He passed away in Mougins, France, at his home, having remained artistically active well into his later years. His death marked the end of an era, one defined by radical innovation, political expression through art, and the breaking of long-held creative boundaries. Picasso's long life spanned dramatic shifts in global history, from the Spanish Civil War to world wars, fascism, and the Cold War. His work often reflected these societal tensions, particularly through pieces like Guernica, a harrowing depiction of the bombing of the Basque town during the Spanish Civil War. In this context, Picasso's death symbolized not just the loss of a singular artist, but the closing chapter of a turbulent, transformative century in which art was increasingly politicized and personal. The immediate aftermath of his death was a global outpouring of recognition and renewed examination of his legacy. Yet, his passing also sparked legal controversy. Picasso had died without a will, leaving behind a vast and valuable estate of paintings, drawings, and sculptures. This led to years of disputes among heirs, museums, and the French government, reflecting the complexities of legacy and ownership in a world where art had become both priceless and monetized. Picasso's death did not diminish his legend. Rather, it expanded it. Museums worldwide mounted retrospectives, and his work continued to influence artists across mediums. His name became synonymous with genius and creative freedom. Statues, exhibitions, and even the Musée Picasso in Paris stand as permanent tributes. His death and enduring legacy reveal the human desire to transcend mortality through creation. In Picasso's case, his vast and varied body of work serves as a form of immortality, each painting a pulse of the era he lived through and helped define. As with Cleopatra or Lincoln, his life and death demonstrate that true influence extends beyond politics or conflict. It lies in reshaping how we see the world. Claire Trevor, often hailed as the Queen of Film Noir, passed away of natural causes on April 8, 2000, at the age of 90 in Newport Beach, California. Her death marked the quiet departure of a golden-era Hollywood star, whose career spanned over 7 decades and left an indelible mark on the cinematic portrayal of complex, strong, and morally ambiguous women. Trevor's passing reflected a broader transition at the turn of the millennium, a moment when the glitter of old Hollywood was being slowly eclipsed by the digital age and new forms of storytelling. In life, she represented an era where women carved memorable identities in a male-dominated industry, often portraying characters who were survivors of the societal pressures that shaped them. Her Oscar-winning performance as the broken-down nightclub singer in Key Largo, 1948, exemplified this, offering a raw, human portrayal of desperation, redemption, and vulnerability. While her death did not cause a global shockwave like that of a political figure or cultural provocateur, it stirred a quiet reverence among film historians and fans alike. Her legacy was reaffirmed in retrospectives and tributes, including the Claire Trevor School of the Arts at the University of California, Irvine, named in her honor for her philanthropic contributions to arts education. Trevor's passing invites reflection on the way memory operates in cultural history. Unlike the dramatic deaths of martyrs or rulers, hers was a dignified, peaceful farewell, yet no less significant. Her impact endures not through tragedy, but through a body of work that continues to inspire film lovers and actors. Her performances, preserved on celluloid, serve as a reminder that immortality in the arts often comes from mastery and nuance rather than dramatic ends. In commemorating Trevor, we witness the human need to preserve brilliance, whether through scholarships, institutions, or simply the rewatching of old films. Society clings to the echoes of those who shaped culture. Claire Trevor's death, while quiet, underscores how enduring memory can be quietly powerful, rooted not in spectacle, but in sustained excellence. Michael Lerner, the Oscar-nominated character actor known for his commanding screen presence and chameleon-like performances, passed away of natural causes on April 8, 2023, at the age of 81. His death marked the end of a prolific career spanning more than 5 decades, during which he portrayed everyone from mobsters to studio executives with equal credibility and charm. Lerner's passing came during a time of transition in the entertainment industry, where character actors, once the backbone of classic storytelling, have begun to be overshadowed by franchise-driven cinema and CGI spectacle. In this context, his death reminds us of an era when craft, depth, and nuance defined cinematic success. His best-known role as the bombastic film producer Jack Lipnick in Barton Fink, 1991, which earned him an Academy Award nomination, exemplified his ability to embody the absurdity and pressure of Hollywood's golden era. Lerner was a master of inhabiting complex, often morally ambiguous characters that reflected the shifting American ideals of power, ambition, and authenticity. The immediate aftermath of Lerner's passing prompted tributes from colleagues and fans alike, highlighting his versatility and immense contribution to film and television. His death didn't shift the trajectory of cinematic history in the way a cultural revolutionary might, but it did stir a wave of appreciation for the often unsung heroes of the silver screen, the character actors whose depth shapes the narrative from the margins. Lerner's death, while peaceful, emphasizes a broader theme in our collective relationship with mortality and memory. We tend to elevate individuals not solely based on their fame, but on the richness of their contributions. His legacy lives on through the films he graced and through the next generation of actors inspired by his subtle mastery of the craft. In commemorating Lerner, we reflect on how art immortalizes lives not through grandeur, but through truth. His work endures in the roles that quietly but powerfully shaped the stories we remember. The Ultimate Warrior, born James Bryan Hellwig, was a towering icon of 1980s and early 1990s professional wrestling. Known for his electrifying entrances, face paint, and high-energy performances in the WWF, now WWE, he became a symbol of raw intensity and larger-than-life athleticism. On April 8, 2014, just one day after delivering an emotional speech on WWE's Monday Night Raw and being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, he collapsed while walking with his wife outside a hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona, and died from a heart attack at the age of 54. His sudden death struck a surreal chord. It came mere hours after he addressed fans with haunting words. "Every man's heart one day beats its final beat. His spirit is released from his mortal body." That speech, now immortalized by fans, seemed almost prophetic, casting his passing in a mythic light. It amplified the mystique surrounding him and turned what was meant to be a celebratory return into a somber farewell. The era that birthed the Ultimate Warrior was marked by excess, spectacle, and the commercialization of sports entertainment. His death, caused by cardiovascular disease, also reflected a growing awareness of the physical toll the wrestling industry exacted on its stars, a topic increasingly examined in the early 2000s, following other untimely deaths in the profession. The immediate aftermath of Warrior's passing was a mixture of grief and reflection. Fans and wrestlers paid tribute to a man who embodied the spirit of a generation raised on larger-than-life heroes. His death prompted renewed conversations about wrestler health and the industry's responsibility to its performers. Warrior's legacy continues not only through his matches and memorable promos, but also through WWE's annual Warrior Award, which honors individuals who exhibit strength and perseverance in the face of adversity. In death, as in life, he became a symbol of unrelenting willpower and personal transformation. His story reminds us how society often mythologizes its cultural figures through performance, ritual, and tribute, turning mortal lives into immortal legends. We remember Warrior not just for the man he was, but for the archetype he came to represent, the fearless, unstoppable hero. Maria Felix, often referred to as La Doña, was one of the most iconic and influential figures in the golden age of Mexican cinema. Known for her commanding screen presence and unapologetic independence, she became a symbol of strength and femininity in a time when traditional gender roles dominated Latin American society. Felix passed away on April 8, 2002, in Mexico City of natural causes, specifically a heart attack, at the age of 88. Remarkably, she died on her birthday, which further mythologized her in the eyes of fans and admirers. Her death marked the end of an era. Felix had come to represent a unique brand of glamour and defiance, often playing strong, regal characters who challenged authority or societal norms. In real life, she embodied many of those same traits, never conforming, never apologizing. In the 1940s and 1950s, when Mexican cinema was thriving and patriarchal values remained dominant, her on-screen roles and personal life were bold statements of self-determination. The immediate consequence of her passing was a nationwide period of mourning in Mexico. Her funeral, attended by political figures, artists, and fans, turned into a cultural event, reflecting her stature as more than just a film star. Tributes flowed in from across the Spanish-speaking world, and retrospectives of her films reintroduced her to younger generations. Felix's death did not diminish her influence, it amplified it. Posthumously, she became a muse for artists, fashion designers, and feminists alike. Frida Kahlo had once painted her, and in recent years, figures like Jean-Paul Gaultier and Dolce & Gabbana cited her as inspiration. The Mexican government has since honored her legacy with commemorative stamps and exhibitions. Her life and death reveal humanity's enduring fascination with power and beauty. Maria Felix mastered both and used them to write her own narrative, both on and off screen. We remember her not merely as a cinematic legend, but as a cultural force who reshaped ideas of womanhood, artistry, and legacy in the Spanish-speaking world. Malcolm McLaren, the provocative impresario behind the rise of punk rock in the 1970s, died on April 8, 2010, at the age of 64 from mesothelioma, a rare cancer often linked to asbestos exposure. His death was natural, but his legacy was anything but conventional. As the manager of the Sex Pistols and a cultural agitator, McLaren thrived on chaos, rebellion, and subversion, values that defined not just his career, but an entire generation disillusioned with post-war British society. His death came at a time when punk's anti-establishment ethos had largely been absorbed into the mainstream. McLaren's passing invited a re-examination of his role in shaping a cultural movement that was more than just music. It was a visceral response to economic decline, class struggle, and political disaffection in 1970s Britain. McLaren, with his flair for spectacle and scandal, channeled this unrest into something both disruptive and magnetic. The Sex Pistols' infamous "God Save the Queen" 1977, coincided with Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee and was a direct affront to British tradition, a moment orchestrated in part by McLaren's genius for provocation. The immediate reaction to his death was mixed. While many praised his vision, others critiqued his manipulation of artists and the commercialization of punk's raw energy. Still, few denied his influence. McLaren was posthumously acknowledged not only as a music figure, but as a cultural architect whose ideas rippled into fashion, film, and art. Vivienne Westwood, his former partner and a fashion icon in her own right, described him as a true visionary. His death reflects the paradoxes of his era: rebellion packaged as entertainment and authenticity questioned amid spectacle. McLaren was a man who blurred lines between art and commerce, sincerity and satire. His legacy challenges us to consider how we preserve dissent, through documentaries, retrospectives, or even fashion runways. Punk, once fleeting and confrontational, became immortal in part because of McLaren's influence. In remembering figures like McLaren, we see how mortality can freeze a moment in time, allowing its cultural resonance to deepen. Through music, biography, and style, he remains an enduring symbol of resistance and reinvention. Annette Funicello, beloved Mouseketeer and 1960s beach movie icon, passed away on April 8, 2013, at the age of 70 due to complications from multiple sclerosis, MS, a degenerative neurological disease she had battled for over 25 years. Her death, though natural, was a somber conclusion to a long struggle marked by both dignity and perseverance. Funicello's passing reflected broader societal shifts in how chronic illness, celebrity, and public vulnerability were perceived in late 20th century America. Rising to fame in the 1950s as one of Walt Disney's most cherished protégés, Funicello represented wholesome American girlhood during an era preoccupied with family values and post-war optimism. Her later transition to teen stardom through beach party films with Frankie Avalon captured the lighthearted escapism of the early 1960s, a cultural calm before the social upheavals of the late decade. Her diagnosis of MS in 1987 came during a time when public discussions of neurological illness were still steeped in misunderstanding. Instead of retreating from the spotlight, Funicello bravely shared her condition in the 1990s, becoming a quiet advocate for awareness and research. The immediate aftermath of her death was marked by widespread public mourning, especially among generations who had grown up with her. Former co-stars and Disney itself paid tribute to her warmth, charm, and enduring appeal. In this way, her death served not to amplify a legend built on controversy or spectacle, but to cement a legacy rooted in resilience and kindness, values often underappreciated in celebrity culture. Funicello's journey underscores the power of public figures to shape perceptions of illness and aging. Through biographical films, tributes, and continued mention in pop culture, she remains a symbol of both youthful innocence and mature courage. Her name adorns research foundations for MS, ensuring her story contributes to ongoing change. Annette Funicello's life and death remind us how mortality reveals the depth of a person's impact, not through dramatic exits, but through sustained grace. We immortalize such figures not only through statues or scripts, but through the values they inspire and the hope they leave behind. Sara Montiel, the Spanish cinema icon and singer, died of natural causes at her Madrid home on April 8, 2013 at the age of 85. Her passing marked the end of an era in Spanish popular culture, closing the curtain on a career that had spanned over 5 decades and defied both Francoist conservatism and Hollywood's narrow casting of Latina women. Her death was not dramatic or tragic in the traditional sense, yet it was deeply symbolic, reflecting the quiet departure of an enduring star who had helped redefine femininity, fame, and artistic freedom in a rigid and often censorious time. Montiel rose to fame in the 1950s and 60s, both in Spain and internationally, becoming the first Spanish actress to succeed in Hollywood with roles in films such as Vera Cruz and Serenade, 1956. She later returned to Spain to star in a series of musical melodramas that fused sensuality, style, and traditional Spanish music. Her on-screen persona, fierce, glamorous, and defiantly independent, challenged the gender norms of Francoist Spain, offering a model of womanhood far removed from domestic submission. Her success abroad also highlighted Spain's cultural potential beyond its political isolation during the dictatorship. The immediate reaction to Montiel's death was one of national mourning. Tributes poured in from Spanish politicians, artists, and fans who saw in her a symbol of resilience and artistic excellence. Though her career had slowed in later years, she remained a beloved figure and a cultural touchstone. Her passing didn't shift political currents, but it did encourage a retrospective appreciation of her influence on Spanish cinema and female representation. Montiel's legacy continues through the countless singers and actresses she inspired, as well as the films and recordings that remain popular. Her distinctive voice and bold screen presence are preserved in archives, biographies, and public memorials. Her death reminds us that cultural power can sometimes outlast political regimes. Through glamour, grit, and unapologetic self-expression, Montiel challenged societal norms, leaving behind more than films, but a lasting example of how art can quietly reshape the world. Laura Nyro, the brilliant yet often underappreciated singer-songwriter of the 1960s and 70s, passed away on April 8, 1997, at the age of 49 from ovarian cancer. Her death was natural but devastating, especially as it mirrored the fate of her mother, who died of the same illness at a similar age. Nyro's passing came at a time when there was a renewed interest in her music, bringing a poignant close to a career defined by emotional intensity, artistic independence, and quiet influence. Nyro emerged during an era of musical revolution, standing alongside male contemporaries like Bob Dylan and Paul Simon. Yet she chose a different path, often shunning fame to focus on the authenticity of her music. Her songs, complex blends of pop, soul, jazz, and gospel, were raw, poetic, and deeply personal. Hits she wrote like Stony End, Wedding Bell Blues, and When I Die became chart toppers for other artists, while her own performances earned critical acclaim and cult devotion. The era she thrived in, marked by the feminist movement and countercultural ideals, saw Nairo pushing boundaries simply by being herself. A fiercely original woman in a male-dominated industry, one who valued introspection over image. Her early death struck a nerve in a generation that had grown up with her voice. The quietness of her passing, away from the spotlight with little fanfare, reflected a humility that contrasted sharply with her artistic brilliance. In the years following her death, Nairo's legend grew. Her influence is now recognized by artists ranging from Joni Mitchell to Elton John, and she was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2012. Tributes in documentaries, essays, and retrospectives have helped preserve her legacy. Nairo's death highlights the bittersweet nature of legacy, how some figures, underappreciated in life, become mythic in memory. It reveals humanity's need to rediscover and reframe greatness, especially in those who lived quietly but impacted culture deeply. Through remastered recordings, cover tributes, and historical reevaluations, Laura Nyro is immortalized not just as a musician, but as a poet of her time. Marian Anderson, one of the most celebrated contraltos of the 20th century, passed away on April 8, 1993, at the age of 96 from heart failure. Her death marked the end of an era for African American artists who had fought for their place in the cultural landscape, and it closed the chapter on a remarkable life that bridged racial divides and shaped the future of classical music. Anderson's life and career were shaped by the racial prejudices of her time. In the 1930s, despite her extraordinary talent, she was denied the opportunity to perform at venues like Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. due to her race. In response, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt arranged for Anderson to perform at the Lincoln Memorial in 1939, an iconic concert that drew over 75,000 people and became a powerful symbol of resistance against racial injustice. This historic performance not only showcased Anderson's immense talent, but also helped to challenge the deeply entrenched segregation in the arts. Anderson's passing in 1993, following a career that spanned decades, came during a period of social change in the United States, particularly in terms of civil rights. Her death was met with an outpouring of tributes, as many recognized her not only as a musical virtuoso, but also as a pioneering figure in the struggle for racial equality. Her achievements had opened doors for future generations of African American artists, particularly in the classical music world, where opportunities for people of color had been limited. In the years following her death, Anderson's legacy was immortalized in countless ways. She was posthumously awarded the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1991, and her performances continue to be celebrated and preserved in recordings. Through schools, music institutions, and museums dedicated to preserving the history of African American culture, Anderson's life and artistry live on. Her contributions have been commemorated not only through her music, but through the inspiration she provided to countless individuals striving for racial equality and artistic excellence. The death of Marian Anderson serves as a reminder of the transformative power of art in challenging societal norms and prejudices. It underscores how figures like Anderson, whose talents were initially rejected, can ultimately change the course of history. Through her legacy, we see how humanity immortalizes those who break barriers and push for justice, preserving their memory in the music, the stories, and the symbols they leave behind.